Understanding the Science of You listeners, thank you for joining me for an episode on, I want to kind of introduce a bit of a guidebook or the concept of a guidebook. So number one, if you weren't aware, there is actually an Understanding the Science of You guidebook to help you break out of, the molds that are holding you back to build bridges to your most productive self. That's on the website. So go in there and go into downloads. Please download it. Give me feedback. Let me know what other information we can add, in subsequent versions and things of that nature. And so I wanted to touch base on those is just helping to create and understand a guidebook, right? Because without a guidebook, it's really easy to internalize when things aren't going right and to say it's my fault, I'm defunct, I'm to blame, blah blah blah. Either way, things like guilt, shame, there's nothing productive that comes from those things. And so the point the first thing I want to say is, look, I'm not broken and you're not broken. The system's broken. Right? I'm not saying all of the system's broken. Everything should be burnt to the ground. Don't get me all crazy like that yet. All right. What I am saying though is the system was built, the education system, the work system, societal system, right? At some way, and things just kind of evolve and get to where they need to, and kind of just happen over time, right? And just like anything, it starts one way, and it doesn't, and it kind of runs its course, right? And I guess that's kind of my point, right? And the guidebook that I feel like is missing for life in the current educational system is the experiential learning, right? Let me explain. Right? I feel like there's knowledge. They say knowledge is power, but right, if knowledge is power, then being able to apply the knowledge is liberation. And so how do we help people? My goal is to help everybody gain access to the knowledge they want and then figure out how to apply it so that you can be enabled and empowered for yourself and not have to rely on others when you don't want to, right? So here's the kind of the three ways that I think, at least in my experiences, that I've boiled down to how people acquire knowledge. One is we're all born with it, right? Hey, I can't explain, at least not on a chart board that anyone's going to believe, right? Like, why I came wired the way that I'm wired. Why am I interested in what I'm interested in? Why do I feel like my purpose is what my purpose is? Why am I good at math or not good at math? Good at science, not good at science, right? It just is what it is, right? And so there's that part. So there's the what we're born with. Then there's the formal education and training, right? Which what we have in school out there today, right? And everybody has access to that. But then there's the third aspect, which is what's lacking, which is the experiential learning. Which is, hey, I understand that a book might tell me that I should do this, or that an adult told me that I should do this, but when I get out there in the real world, stuff doesn't always seem to work the way that books told me to. And so what I need to understand is when I go into the real world and I do what the book says, and the world punches me in the face, the book didn't give me the advice how to handle that, right? The book said it's supposed to, you do this, and then this is supposed to happen. Well, that didn't happen, so now what? Right. So there's this huge aspect of being able to acquire knowledge and learn how to successfully navigate life to achieve goals that comes from experiential learning. And the only way to get experiential learning is to experience life. And you know what? Experiencing life sometimes, it's going to come just like riding a bike, right? Learn how to ride a bike, right? We had some skinned knees, we had some bumped heads, whatever the case might be. And while those weren't pleasant, I can tell you, I certainly never enjoyed falling off my bike and skinning my knee. They were certainly motivators that helped me to learn to stay on my bike, right? And so there is an element of experiential learning that there is just no substitute for. But how do you? But there's also a certain safety that needs to happen when it comes to experiential learning, right? And so I want to kind of touch base on that as you see with the guests. We only have two so far, but already a wide range of the spectrum, and we're going to continue to do that. And so as we do that, though, I want to make sure that, again, people understand how to figure out how to take what's for them and how to leave what's not for them. So I'll speak. So personally, myself, when I'm starting out new things, I'm very extreme, and I have to push the edges and the boundaries on things to know where those boundaries exist. Right? If I don't figure out where those boundaries exist, I'm always going to wonder what could be, or what else could it be better? Could it be better? Could it be better? So just knowing me, I have to establish that I can push as far as things can push, and then that's what they are. I accept those boundaries, I accept those limitations, and now I'm able to, be at peace with that and focus on just optimizing my experience inside of those boundaries. The other thing that by pushing those boundaries or going to the extremes does for me personally is that once I face the fear of saying something or doing something, then everything that's less than the worst case scenario is that much easier. Right? And I'll share a funny story though on that before, which is I was meditating and I'm saying to myself, and I'm asking, look, heights really bother me. So because I allow fear, does that mean I lack faith? Does that mean that my spirituality is challenged? Right? Am I supposed to, right? Just like riding a bike, am I supposed to put myself in dangerous situations with fears to prove that I have faith? And I'm meditating. I'm saying, right. So and that's what I'm asking. I'm saying, should I go start jumping out of planes? Do I start jumping on from rooftop to rooftop to demonstrate that I have faith? And the information that I got back was, yeah, I gave you a brain to use too. And so you're right. And so that helped, and that feedback, look, humorous. Look, this is a very true story. And it helped for me to take the pressure off of thinking that, any sort of fear, I hate to use the word fear, but fears, concerns, whatever else, is something that I was allowing to take as a negative, like I hadn't achieved something, as opposed to accepting it as a piece of information to guide me, right? As a neutral piece of information to guide me. It only had, the power of the emotion behind it, whatever I granted it. Again, way easier said than done, but it helped me to really understand, especially as I'm, going through my own, through my journey and continue understanding the science of myself, to be responsible in the experiential learning, that I put myself in situations that are only going to be productive for my learning. It's not just, I'm not challenging myself for simply an adrenaline high. I'm past that phase of my life. I'd like to think anyway. The only other thing that I'd like to add here to the experiential learning and the kind of the concept of getting to understand and creating your own guidebook for yourself, right, is that you got to, there's no substitute for figuring out yourself, right? And so one of the ways that I found to be extremely effective is to put together what you're trying to figure out ahead of time, right? Through the experiential learning, what will be considered a win, what will be considered a loss, what are you getting out of it, is it worth it? And I don't like the way that came out either, so don't. The one thing I'd like to then just add about the experiential learning is, look, experiential learning isn't for the faint of heart, right? It involves learning things, however it is that you learn them, right? Going through that. Some of us, like I used to always say, it takes a 2x4 across the head to get me to learn. And but when I learn, it sticks with me. So again, pros and cons to that. And as you listen to both Sunshine and Johnny talk, like, their own journeys and experiential learning, right? It involved having to feel differently about themselves than what the mold that they were told to get into, having to be comfortable with that, and going out and testing those boundaries and testing how their reactions to people. And there is no substitute for that, right? The only way to know if a boat's going to float is to put in the water, right? Ultimately. So same thing, such as life. The only way to know what's going to work is to do it, right? And then the last thing that I would say is, and the more that as a positive to that experiential learning, though, well, it's all positive, right? It's positive as a perspective, but and maybe an encouragement for for experiential learning and putting yourself out there, right? Is by putting yourself out there and taking action, you're providing your intention to the universe. And by giving your intention to the universe is able to then provide, the energies in which to support you. Without you giving the universe direction in what you need, how is it supposed to help you, right? So the more that we put ourselves out there, the more that we operate with clear, genuine, authentic intention, the easier it is for us to get support from those in the universe around us. And so what I wish is for all of you to find yourself to have a safe living and learning environment for your experiential learning. Find, people that you relate to. Find people that you can have honest and open conversations with. because none of us did this. And I can promise you, myself, any person I've talked to, regardless of walk of life, anybody who talks about any sort of accomplishment or success will tell you they didn't do it alone. So don't put the pressure on yourself to do it alone either.